A very pleasant good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Let me apologize for the slight delay in the start of this morning's press briefing called by the People's Progressive Party Civic. This morning I have two members on our panel who will be sharing this press conference. To my far left is Charles Ramsey Jr., an attorney at law and a candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic in the upcoming 2015 general and regional elections, and Madam Gail Teixeira, presidential advisor on governance and also a candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic at the upcoming elections. I will first start with Ms. Teixeira, who will give us an opening presentation, and then followed by Mr. Charles Ramson, and then we'll open up for questions, and these questions will only be on the opening presentations. I thank you very much, and I will now proceed to Madam Gail Teixeira.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming. I am also the assistant election agent for Georgetown, and Mr. Ramson is the counting agent for the PPPC, as I am, for the area of Georgetown. We wanted to bring to your attention in the media a number of instances which we find disturbing, and we feel that it's important for you to know, and also, of course, the public. They fall into basically two categories. One, the issue of intimidation and abuse of people by APNU supporters in full uniform or full colors of the yellow and green. We've had some reports in this week of some very disturbing type of reports that we've been receiving. First of all, the more covert, as I would call it, intimidation, and I'll come to the more overt one in a minute. We have a report that at La Penitence Middle Road, where there has been a traditional polling station at a residence since 1997, that on two occasions in the last 5 days, groups of women and men have threatened the owner of the house and abused him and said that there would be no voting going on at this place whatsoever, that no one will be allowed to vote at that particular station. Now, as you know, GCOM has not given us the final polling stations, but I guess people are operating on what is the traditional polling station in that area. Alexander Village, we have a report of April 15th, of 9 persons in full colors, and I'm using this almost in a militaristic way, in full APNU colors, walking through the village, threatening people and abusing people and telling them what will happen to them if they vote for the PPC. In Alboystown, Charlestown, we have reports that are more covert intimidation, again, of threatening people that they can't be polling agents, they can't be associated with the PPPC. Again, these are done with persons in their colors. We have also, as I said, the more overt one of 2 instances this week of the public meetings. One at William and Queen Street, Kitty, on the Monday, I think April the 13th, where, and this is, the video is all posted on YouTube, so those of you who think we're making this up can look at that, the coverage or the footage of the behavior. This is where Dr. Luncheon and Mr. McCoy were scheduled to speak. The meeting did go on, but the meeting was interrupted by the behavior on the road by persons in APNU colors with their flags, going through cars and putting their flags over cars, stopping cars, and a lot of other vulgar behavior, including what was the most disturbing one of a person who was passing by, who happened to be of a different ethnic group, being grabbed and forced to hold the APNU flag and dance with it in the street while they were holding his hand on the flag. These may look these are very serious issues actually in terms of intimidation. And then we have Sophia, which was scheduled for Wednesday the 15th. The advertisement had started the day before. The vehicle was pelted by persons who came out with their flags, APNU flags, and threatened guys who were driving and announcing for our vehicles reported to the police station. On the following day, when they went back to announce, they went to the police station and asked to be accompanied by the police. The police did accompany them in their announcing. Again, a group came out and threatened and tried to stop the car, but when they realized the police were behind, they then pulled back. Based on a number of intelligence we received from the area, we decided to not have the meeting. However, we did not call off the meeting. And the recce that was done at 6 o'clock, there was a group waiting, and they had planted all their flags on the area the only area where you could have put your vehicle, your podium, your mics and stuff like that, so that where we had to have gone in as we had scheduled to go in, and try to find a space to have a meeting and or even to dare touch one of the flags. We have the firm belief that this would have been the opportunity for a serious confrontation in that community. And therefore our decision to play it safe and to step down so as not to have any provocation, we believe was the wisest approach. So that these are some concerns we have. We also have a case we've just received this morning of a man who was wearing his T-shirt after one of our meetings in the Campbellville area, where he was accosted, he was threatened, and he was beaten. We have his medical, he has a medical certificate, and this is a case a report we received this morning, which we're investigating. Details of that, once we're convinced that this is what happened, we will release. So those are the issues of intimidation. And then we have also now the issues of what some people are calling the poster and flag war. I don't like the use of the word war, but it is very disturbing what is going on. In the past, over the many elections, there have always been this issue of posters being pulled down and flags being pulled down. But most of these are sporadic events, and sometimes they're just people from the community not happy to have a PPP flag or poster in the area, and therefore individuals may climb the post and pull down. This time, it is very, very different. This is orchestrated, organized, and engineered. And I say this based on the following, that in all the cases we have, these are with vehicles that are marked with the APNU colors, and this has in some cases been done in broad daylight. So that we have again cases on April the 15th in Cummings Lodge, a vehicle with APNU colors went in the daytime period and pulled down the flags and posters of the PPPC. We have, they also have cases in Mandela, the Mandela Avenue around the well. We reported to the police on Monday night that there was a group climbing with the same vehicles with the flags, climbing up and pulling down our posters and flags. These mirrors what these instances mirror what the PPPC stated in a press statement yesterday about what is going on in other regions. Region 3, other parts of Region 4, 5, 6, and 10. So that, and in all cases, there appears to be the APNU seem to have no problems with identifying themselves with this behavior. The particular, we had an instance yesterday also along the East Coast of a similar thing, a vehicle with full flags and colors pulling down our stuff while they were putting up their own. Mr. Ramsey here had a particular distasteful situation on Saturday night, Friday night, which he will report on to you. But we find these instances and incidents disturbing because of the fact that they are organized. These are not sporadic individuals who love their party to death and want to do something. This is organized and most likely organized centrally. So I'll hand over to Mr. Ramsey for now.
Yeah, on Friday evening, or I should say good morning everyone. Thank you for coming to this press briefing. On Friday evening, while I had a team doing some flagging and postering on Sheriff Street, we had a group roll up on us with vehicles, and I named some of the individuals that came out of the vehicle. Kemra Dramjitan, Fedi Kisoon, and you had about, I would say, about 6 or 7 other persons wearing AFC, APNU shirts. I probably, on the report that we were destroying or pulling down their flags. So after I denied it and I showed them, look, all the flags that you have along Sheriff Street are still there. Their effort really was to intimidate us, and Freddie Kissoon started cursing at me and in a very hostile way, and then he had one of his persons with him hold him back and push him to one side and try to push him in the car, as though he was attempting to intimidate us just because we were flagging an area. I found this to be extremely disturbing, that this is the type of democratic political process that is going on by a party that is intended to lead, that is offering themselves to lead our country. But another issue arose, which it leads me to think that this is the same old PNC tactics that is going on as a political engineering machinery. One of the individuals in the group said to a gentleman that was a part of my team, who happens to be mixed race, mulatto, mixed race. He said to the individual, "I'm very surprised at you. Do not sell your birthright." He said it twice, and this was in the presence of all the individuals that I had alluded to a moment ago, and in addition to the vice presidential candidate of the APNU AFC alliance. At no moment during that confrontation did that vice presidential candidate or Freddie Kissoon attempt to accost the individual who made that statement. Do not sell your birthright. What does that mean? What does that really mean? You choose to support a political party that is other than yours, and they're selling their birthright, maybe because they're of a different race. That is, I found, not only disturbing, distasteful, I found it to be diabolical for the kind of future that we would like to see as the new generation of Guyana. All those individuals that were with me as part of my team, they're young people that they don't care about race. They believe in the PPPC, they believe in the candidates of the PPPC, and the vision that our party has for Guyana and our track record. And that is what this election is really about. Why does this conversation and electioneering gimmicks have to go into race? Why? And no statement subsequently. So I reported to Kemraj, and I reported to everyone there, and I said to them that you are here because you might have heard about a report that we are flagging. You may have also heard that we are pulling flags down, but you can see with your own eyes that all your flags are still up on the posts. Why, when I told him about the instance that was on Durban Street just the night before, when on our Facebook page we posted a picture of the individual who was attempting to intimidate the group, who was doing the same thing that we were doing, and that was just flagging. Why have they not issued any statements, accosted individuals, disciplined individuals? Why have they not done that? When we went up to Linden on Sunday, there was a billboard as you were about to turn, as you have billboards all over the place with APNU, AFC, and PPP all over the place. The billboard was destroyed. Up in Myconi, there's a billboard there with paint and other kinds of colors thrown on the billboard. They're not, the ones that are destroying it are not PPP supporters, obviously not. So why is the leadership not taking any efforts to prevent this stuff from happening?
Okay, thank you very much. We have two other areas to add. One that a number of the incidents have taken place that have been reported on, we have reported to the police, so that we are making sure the police have reports of these incidences, including one where persons were assaulted. We have the photograph of the person at Mandela and Durban about a week ago, where there was a similar kind of experience with putting up posters and tearing down posters. But I want to raise one area which is new in this election too. This is the social media and the blogs, and in particular the denigration of female candidates of the PPPC. There are sexist comments that are being printed about the PPP civic female candidates. And whilst we can't stop this, there are no laws to prevent it. Nevertheless, it's disturbing. And as women journalists, I hope you'd also be concerned. Some of you who are obviously here are female. But the sexist comments about women candidates of the PPPC, their personal lives, the way they dress, the way they walk, what they say, what they're involved in, and even going as far to include their children and stuff like that. This is really unacceptable, because I'm certainly not seeing the same blogs attacking male candidates whatsoever. And so we as women in the PPPC and as candidates, we find this extremely offensive, sexist, and obviously discriminating against us as women political candidates. Charles has pointed out a number of what happened last week, and we're bringing these to your attention because we believe that these are very disturbing developments. We still have almost a month or a little less than a month to go. And the fact that these are being done openly with persons in their colors, in the yellow and green. So they're not trying to hide what they're doing. They're fully clothed. They are going into areas, and as I pointed out, the one in Alexander Village, where 9 persons walked through the village in full colors, threatening people, pointing at people's houses, abusing them and telling them what's going to happen. So these are not incidents that we wish to amplify in a sense of exaggerate, but we're also very concerned that these are happening, and it is intimidating people. And the point that Charles made about the issue of birthright, this is also, we're hearing this from the grassroots, that this is the kind of threats and intimidation going on, particularly in areas that some people feel are their territories. Guyana has never been, over all these years, garrison country, like Jamaica, where if you wear your party colors and you go into another community, you face abuse, threats, and even being assaulted. We've never had that kind of political culture here, and therefore this attempt to garrison off Guyana and not allow political parties in any area to put up, because we do not have any report, nor are we aware of any APNU being prevented or from putting up their flags and colors in areas that are traditional supporters of the PPP. What they are doing instead is pulling down ours in areas, whether they're PPP areas or supporters from the People's Progressive Party Civic, and including those where we have put them up in areas that they consider theirs. The right of our people to choose, the right of our people to have to be able to vote without fear or intimidation is as important to the right to free and fair elections as actually when you are able to ensure that all the other mechanisms for free and fair election are in order by GCOM and so forth. So the point about this morning is that a number of these instances we've given in the Georgetown area in particular are clearly, these are orchestrated, they are fully and most likely and can only be done centrally. And that is our main concern, that is, of these, in relation to these developments here.
Thank you, Mr. Shearer and Mr. Ramson. We now open up the floor for questions coming from you, the media. We'll ask that you identify yourselves and the media house before you attempt to ask your questions.
Question for Mr. Ramsey.
Sure.
You'll have to censor this a bit. Exactly what did Mr. Kassim say to you?
You are an effing thug. That's what he said to me.
I don't think you can carry it in the newspapers, can you?
No.
Because I decided to put flags up, I'm an effing thug.
And your response to him?
I didn't say anything to him. I said, listen, I said to Freddie, there is no day and time that you can intimidate me. If I ever felt that an intimidation issue was a shortcoming in my personality, I wouldn't enter politics. This is not the place for people who can be intimidated very easily, because this is what we have to face on a regular basis. And there's nothing like that going on the opposite side. I want to be very clear about that. No PPP person goes up to the opposite side and says two things. Number one, we won't go to their side and say, you have to vote for us because of your race. We will never go to them and say that. And anytime I've ever heard any language being used in that direction from a supporter, I would accost them personally. I would accost them and tell them that this is not the direction for us, even when that language is used by persons who are just making an analysis. It is a point for our party to move away from this race issue to build one society. I said that there was another thing that we don't do. Another thing we don't do is when we see flags going up in our support base, we don't roll up in 3-4 vehicles as what happened on Friday night at, I think it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night. We don't roll up on individuals who are putting up flags and a team of people come out. That has never happened. That is not what this PPPC government stands for as a party or as an electioning campaign mode or strategy. We have never done it in the past, and we never will do it in the future. We've worked very hard to build a democracy in this country, and that's why this election is so competitive. It's competitive because parties are able to compete freely. There are big flags flying all across Georgetown and other places that I go across Guyana. Big APNU flags. Incidentally, it doesn't have APNU plus AFC. But big APNU flags are flying all across Guyana. And that is not something that we think that should be outlawed or fought against. It is a freely competitive election. And that is what this party has built over the last 22 years.
Yes. Anyone else would like to? Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nishash. I'm visiting from Baltimore News in Toronto. My question is, there's a lot of concern, especially from people in the diaspora, about crime and present crime situations that are happening in the country right now. In particular, me observing what's happening right now with the situation. Is there any steps the government is taking to maybe increase police presence and whatnot?
You might not have been here from the beginning, but this morning's press briefing is restricted to the issues raised in the presentations by Mr. Ramson and Mr. Shearer. So the crime issue, you can approach the Minister of Home Affairs, the Commissioner of Police, or any other person you feel capable of answering your question. But this morning we wouldn't be dealing
But the
with
issue of the
that.
police behavior, though, at the meetings where things have happened, like William and Queen Street, eventually, the police push them to the other side of the road. And that was of concern because when you look at YouTube coverage of the event in William and Queen Street, the police are absent in the first 7 to 8 minutes of the footage when they're in the street and they're winding up and they grab the man and make him hold the flag and stuff like that. The police are absent. You don't see them until near the end of the footage, where they then step in and kind of push them back across the street, opposite where we are. So the issue of the police presence where there are incidents like this, we have, first of all, any incident that takes place, whether it is announcing or with our flags, posters, billboard, we're reporting these to the police. So there's a police record, whether the police are able to find the persons or find the vehicles. That is a different issue which we will have to continue to follow up with the police. The second issue is that where there have been the issues of the behavior at William and Queen Street, for example, that the police appeared to have taken a little while to catch themselves and put them back across the street. And we've had some cases where we have had meetings in one or two areas that can be difficult, that could be difficult, where the police have turned up like 40 minutes late and stuff like that. And in that period, some hecklers have come and stuff like that. But we have not been in danger in that sense. But the issue of Sophia, the meeting where we were forced to call off, or we felt in the interest of safety and peace, that we felt it was the best thing to do was to call it off. And our recce at the time at 6 o'clock, when the meeting should have been held, proved that we were right. The police, I don't know if the police were present there at the time, but my information was that they weren't. So that the police have generally been cooperative, but we would like them to, when situations are what do you call, the temperature's rising and situations are getting hyped up, that they're able to manage the situation so that people are able to freely speak. We can't stop heckling. Heckling is a normal thing. At meetings, we're used to that over the decades, and in particular going into certain areas where people may or may not be supportive of us. But it is our right, our democratic right, to go and share our views with people and let them hear us. But heckling is different from having a gang of people have a carnival in the middle of the street, make lots of noise, stop cars, intimidate people, threaten people. That's a completely different ballgame. So I see Vanessa Kissoon talks about the right to heckle. The right to heckle may be one that is, I'm not sure I've never heard it as a fundamental right. She seems to be adding that. But the issue of heckling is something we're used to. What we find disturbing is the intimidation that's going on by gangs of people going into areas and threatening in full colors, and also coming to meetings in full colors and deliberately trying to disrupt the meeting in a very physical way, as happened at William and Queen Street, distinct from you got a heckler in the corner, you have 10 people in the corner heckling. We're used to that kind of style, not this style. These are some what do you call, interventions or innovations that are new to this election season.
Mr. Shearer.
Hold on. We have a new person. Yes, Dennis, you. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Shearer, have you been following up with the police though to find out how their investigations are going, whether they've been able to deal with some of their concerns, especially those that occurred in Kitty and Sophia?
These are pretty recent. We have not been able to follow up as yet with them. But the police are well aware of these reports. And the police witnessed the time on, Wednesday morning, the behavior of the people. They didn't arrest anybody, but they were trying to block the vehicle. They were shouting insults. And as I said, when they realized the police were there, they kind of withdrew a bit, and we came out, but they were still chasing the vehicle and stuff like that. So in the case of Sophia, the second time, the police witnessed it themselves. So we have to keep following up with the police on a number of these instances. You're correct, and we will do so.
Mr. Ramsey, in your case, did you report to your confrontation, your alleged confrontation with Mr. Kissoon?
No, we're in the middle of an election, and I'm a candidate in this election, and I feel as though that my efforts are, I know what the purpose of his presence and statements were. It's simply about the intimidation factor, and it not only intimidating myself but intimidating my team. We have a job to do in this election, and just to take a quick follow-up from Gail on the question that you had asked her. Gail is also a candidate in the election, a senior party member who is in control of a plethora of areas in this election. So to be able to do follow-ups after instances after almost every single day that things are happening, then we're not going to be able to focus on winning the election and getting the message out to the people, which is incidentally what our public meetings are intended to do, just to get a message out to the people. So to bring a group of people to heckle and protest and dance in the street and placards and stop cars and things like that, that is not a fair and proper political process. And most right-thinking Guyanese would not support that kind of behavior. And I'm surprised a little bit that the media hasn't taken enough of the initiative to use that type of behavior to say this is frowned upon in our country now. And again, I just want to show that on the obverse side of the situation, the same is not true. We don't have persons going to their meetings and heckle and shout and dance in the street and stop cars, and that we don't do that.
Any other
Yeah,
questions?
question for Mr. Shiro. Based on the information that you would have received, about how many attacks were there?
Well, the ones I've categorized for the Georgetown area, that they are covert and overt operations, that incidences. And so the ones with Le Penitence Middle Road to do with the polling station, the Alexander Village, these are ones that they're being reported into us. And the gentleman whose house is the polling station, or has been the polling station in that area since 1997, he has been encouraged to report to the police because he is absolutely terrified. And to GCOM, because of course his house may be selected. There are a number of incidents. I said Alexander Village, Alboystown and Charlestown. We are aware of the kind of what we call the whisper campaign to get people in that area who were coming on board as polling agents, as volunteers and so on. They are now terrified and they don't want to do it. In fact, they want to, even in some cases, in some areas, that the meetings be held in a neighboring area so they feel secure to go to those. In the public meetings, those I've reported on. And then the poster issues, well, what we probably, the postering and the pulling down of our flags and stuff, we've started to more document it, because in the beginning when the campaign started, especially after nomination day, we just figured this is sporadic events. But what is clear from November 7th to now, that these are not sporadic events. They're vehicles with flags, publicly with guys, with colors, who are doing it. So that's the distinction. And so now that we are clearer on what's going on, the issues that we've pointed out with Charles' incident, the ones at Cummings Lodge and other areas are being reported to the police.
You see, if I may add, because I'm also part of some of the exercises around operation around the country, in Georgetown in particular, you'll find people the youngsters going and put up big posters and so forth. You find a person passing a vehicle and taunt them and trouble them and so forth. That's a little different. And people don't worry to report those, and we don't follow those up. But there are certain incidences that really concerns us, like the one in front of Kaitro News 2 days ago at 5 o'clock in the morning, where probably 8 members of staff from the Kaitro News almost attempted to intimidate the guys there. Y'all move from here. We don't want you. We want the coalition. You're late. This is in front of Kaitro News, and it's on video here. So some of these things concern us, and I mention this even though it's not exactly the same as a political party directing its supporters, but it is a media house, and then one has to ask themselves about a professional standard, even in the case of the political parties directing or not directing. So these are issues that really concern us. And there are many things that happen. And sometimes we don't bother, as Charles said, because it's like really taking us away from the focus that we should. So you have to take down, like in the case of Mandel and Durban, where the two guys had to leave their operation. These are two young supporters of the PPP. Leave their operation, go to the station, takes them almost an hour to make their report. They are taken away from 1 hour's work of putting up flags and posters on the street. And so sometimes it's not encouraging to do that. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Sherrill, given these incidents of intimidation, as you say,
Yeah.
especially the one with the polling place,
Yes.
would you not agree then that this justifies GCOM's decision not to publicly vet polling day staff?
Not to what?
Public vetting of polling day staff.
It doesn't.
Because
I-
GCOM was saying this could cause staff to be intimidated, and remember they have a poll.
Well, they're slightly different things. This is a man's house that has been used as a polling station. Now, both the PVPC and the APNU have recommended to GCOM that the use of private residence, bars, nightclubs, rum shops be reduced to as much as possible. And in fact, at the PVPC level, we have made recommendations for public places, churches, mosques, temples, whatever, that could be used alternatively to private residence, so as to give people some security if they're going to vote. But in the case of this gentleman, his place has been used as a polling station historically. And twice in the last few days, gangs of people, in one case 30 people, came in front of his house and threatened that this place will not be a polling station, no one going to be allowed to vote here, wait you can see. And of course he's terrified, which means that he's got to tell GCOM got to decide if they're going to find another location. There's been no complaint about this location of any interference by the owner since 1997. So that the issue of the polling stations, we are anxious as a party that the polling stations be advertised, the final list, because we need to put polling agents next to each station. We need to know the final number of polling agents required across the country, because remember, the numbers have increased from 206 to 2011. The number of polling stations, I understand, are increased from 2011 to 2015. So we have to find over 2,000 odd polling agents to cover every single station. So the announcement of GCOM of giving us the final list of the polling stations is absolutely critical, because time is going. And we have to know if there have been changes and numbers have changed and stuff. The second issue of the publicizing of the staff of GCOM, I mean, that's a completely different issue, and certainly the PVPC, I think, has spoken on that before. But this is Guyana, and we are a diverse country, ethnically, culturally, religiously, in many ways. And so the insistence of trying to ensure that the GCOM represents Guyana. It is the Guyana Elections Commission, and therefore there is some sensitivity to the fact that there is some representation of all the people of Guyana. The other issue is that we've had enough experience, particularly in 2011 elections, of people in the polling stations who had presiding officers who had green ribbons on. And we saw it on election day in Georgetown, in other areas, where why would the presiding officers be wearing colors belonging to a party that was in the campaign? Totally unallowed, because our polling agents are not allowed to go into any station with any paraphernalia of our parties, nor in fact are any candidate supposed to go into a polling station with their colors on either. So that the issue to have scrutiny of those who are being appointed as registrars, deputy registrars, presiding officers, is one to also ensure that the persons that are there are going to behave in a professional manner. They have a right to their political views, but on that day, they are expected to be neutral, professional, and to protect the right of the citizens to vote in this country. And so the issue of seeing who is there It's of interest. If you check the DROs, 200 odd DROs, you might find it interesting to see how is it represented, how is Guyana represented in the whole thing. But that's your investigative work for you to do that. But the scrutiny of the parties was to try to ensure that what happened in 2011 would not happen again, that there would be some fairness and balance. We're not asking to control anything. We're asking for fairness, balance, neutrality of the staff, and professionalism of the staff.
And what about the fact that some of them might have legitimate fears of being intimidated before ED? And
Well, I believe that that is par for the course. If polling agents are being intimidated, if people in villages are being intimidated, if persons who have been selected by GCOM may be intimidated as well, it's logical, because it seems to be the tactic of the opposition, APNU, AFC, to intimidate people, to frighten people, to assert themselves in a way that would make people be afraid. And so, whilst that may be a concern, that's for GCOM to handle that issue. I don't think it's one for our party, because we're not the ones intimidating anybody. We're a party of peace and nonviolence. And therefore, our issue is to make sure, our role in these elections, to make sure that these elections are free and fair and free from fear, and to ensure that our supporters and people who like us and who are coming on board with us can exercise their right to vote on May the 11th without any fear.
Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Okay, I must thank you very much for responding, and see you next time. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sure, bro.